Inspiring Excellence. I'd like to call to order our Tuesday, May 29, 2018 regular board meeting. We'll begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone. It's great to see a full house on last day of work for some of you, right? Thank you for being here. We do have our public comment forms over here by Dr. Allenez. If anyone would like to address the board on any issues that are on our agenda tonight, please fill out one of those forms in its entirety and send it back to the board table, and I'll bring that up at the appropriate time. We'll begin with agenda adjustments. Are there any adjustments to the agenda by the board?
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the report out for the legislative report out, I said I would do that after the special session. This is that meeting where it's the long report out since the special session ended. So if we could add that, please, I'd appreciate it.
I'll add that.
Under, yes, not under other, but
Under
legislative.
Legislative committee.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? With that, we'll move on to our community engagement and dialogue. We have our Portage Township Education Foundation Grant Awards.
Hi. As many of you know, the Portage Township Education Foundation is an all-volunteer board of people who come from diverse backgrounds who just share a passion for providing the best educational opportunities within the Portage Township schools. We realize that as the corporation, as an individual employees, we all have to live within budgets. And we also realize that many Portage employees spend a lot of out-of-pocket money, and that there are opportunities out there that are more than what we can even take out of pocket. So that's where our foundation comes into play then. So we actively pursue fundraising opportunities throughout the year so that in the spring, then we can open up our grant cycle to all Portage employees, that grants for innovative ideas that will not only help increase student achievement, but that will also help to excite children to learn and want to be in school and become future or lifelong learners. So at this time, we're really pleased to present to Portage Township Schools a check. And this year we were able to provide $16,398.13 in grant money to the Portage Township Schools. Been given to the Portage schools, and the accounts have been set up for each of the individual grant recipients. And actually, a lot of the grant recipients have already ordered their material, so they'll be ready for the next school year, which is really exciting. At this time, we'd like to call the grant recipients up, please. If they can just come to line here and introduce themselves to the board.
I'm Gina Helsing from Bagley, and I am the lucky grant recipient of Can-Do chairs for my classroom. We got them already, and I made brochures. And Can-Do chairs help the students eliminate distractions and stay focused. So I will post this, and I have extras if anyone wants one. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Jeff King, principal at Aylesworth. I don't have fancy brochures. I was told to stick to a script, so I typed some things out. Our hope is at Aylesworth to equip our makerspace with some hands-on learning experiences that promote engagement in science, technology, engineering, and math. That will provide a uniquely better educational experience that grows our kids' ability to think, to collaborate, to experiment, to discover, and create. We believe opportunities like these have a significant impact on our kids because they are authentic moments where they can learn how to think and they can learn how to learn. And we hope to grow kids who are more confidently thinking for themselves, thinking critically, and thinking creatively. We're using resources such as STEM to Story and 50 Experiments. Those are professional books that provide lessons and learning opportunities and experiences that teachers can easily equip, along with 2 U Engineer kits from Pearson that have just a whole bunch of different types of things, gadgets, gizmos, stuff that kids can be able to piece together, puzzle together, assemble together, break down, and just continue to develop their critical thinking in regards to that. So that's what I got. Thank you so much for your support. Please have
myself, Parente.
I'm Stacey Arnold.
We're the art department from Willow Creek Middle School. We decided to write a grant called Printing with a Purpose.
So what we'd like to do is we want our students to be able to create projects that are more real world applicable, and that's something that they can feel more invested in as well, that can also give back to the community.
So each student is going to be able to design a canvas bag and sell it, and then our proceeds will go directly to the Portage Food Pantry.
So with the grant, we were able to purchase everything we needed to start the screen printing unit, went from our screens, our inks, and some of the other materials to start our unit. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Gurman.
I'm Tyler Monahan. I'm one of the PE teachers over at Fagley Middle School.
I want to start by thanking PTEF for this wonderful chance and scholarship, and thanking Amanda, our superintendent, and the school board for having us here today. Our grant dealt with heart rate monitors. And in the past, if you remember many years ago, we actually had heart rate monitors that had went across your chest. And middle school, that's kind of difficult sometimes, especially girls and embarrassment and everything else. And they ran out of batteries, and then it cost almost more to replace the batteries than it did. But of course, with all the new innovation technology, we're now able to purchase like a armband. And in this case, then each student would be able to have them, and during class, they're going to be able to find out what they do and how it affects their heart rate. So what Mr. Milletta would do versus what I would do and the activities do would be reading differently, because he might be in great shape and I'm not. And
It's
so
the opposite. It's okay, I can face it.
So it's an individual idea, and so then they also can take that with them outside of the school to know what activities they're doing that are good and heart healthy for them, and continue on with their learning as living a healthy lifestyle. We just want to thanks again for the opportunity, and we're hoping to get more next year.
Hi, I'm Laura Robertson with Paul Saylor. I have put a grant forward for building a better robotics team. Paul Saylor had our first robotics team this year. We had 8 very excited 3rd and 4th graders. And when we went to our first meet, we were really unprepared and understaffed and really not knowing what we were getting ourselves into. By the end of our season, we were getting inquiries from kids every day wanting to join, and we only had the product for 1 robot. And now, next year, we will have up to 4 robots, hopefully 20 to 25 kids on our team. We'll be able to be competitive with the other Portage schools as well, and also prepare the kids for going into the robotics program for middle school and high school. And we're really, really excited and very grateful. So, thank you. Hi, my name is Liz Preboy. I'm the Director of Special Education here in Portage. I wrote a grant for sensory kits. As you know, we have many students with autism and ADHD and emotional disabilities and anxiety disorders. And so I wanted to better equip our elementary schools, and eventually we'll make our way up, with not only training, but also materials. So each of your homeschool advisors are going to be getting a kit with some various sensory materials, including a giant weighted teddy bear that they can keep in their office. We also then are going to go on tour and do a training for all general ed and special ed teachers in the elementary schools next semester. So thank you to the foundation.
My name is John Ruscosi. I am one of the Project Lead the Way teachers at the high school and also one of the robotics coaches for the quarterbox. Our grant was to purchase 3 of the new VEX robotics fields for our competitions next year, which will help us continue to host competitions at the high school. That's extremely important because we bring in teams from all over the Midwest to compete. And it also allows our high school students and middle school students to network and work with other teams from around the Midwest. We were actually recognized for our community outreach this year at the VEX Robotics World Competition as one of 900 schools. So we compete against 900 schools from 50 different countries. and we were selected as the community award recipient out of those 900 schools. So we hope this grant would help us to continue and defend that title for next year, and we're hoping to actually bring back some more hardware as well from the Worlds next year. So thank you very much, I appreciate it.
My name is Kara Thornberry. I teach kindergarten at Jones Elementary School. My grant was for a journal called Letters Alive, and it will assist with our other language arts curriculum that we already have, and it'll bring the letters alive. It's a free app that goes with the journal, and you scan it's like a QR code that you would scan, and then the letter comes alive, like A is alligator, and it teaches the letter, the sound, and handwriting aspect. So in addition to having the journal, then they can also do some of that learning independently on the free iPad app.
Hello, I'm Michelle Stewart, principal at Willow Creek, and I'm here representing Susan Jeffrey, special education teacher at Willow Creek. She regrets that she can't be here to accept her grant, but she fell ill this afternoon. So she did a wonderful grant called Project Read, and what we're doing is many of our students with significant cognitive delays are having trouble with the Project Lead the Way curriculum because of the rigor of it. And so what she did is she developed a program and together with the rest of the department so that those students can have projects that are similar, but the reading of the instructions and that sort of thing are done together and done within their ability level. So they still get to do the kinds of pre-engineering things that the other children are doing and that they wish to do for 7th and 8th grade, just in a different setting. So these will be the materials that we're able to use things for. So thank you very much. Thanks, Foundation.
Hi, my name is Sarah Bell. I teach at Jones Elementary. I wrote a grant for something called Family Math Night. So it's something I've been envisioning for several years, and I'm super excited that we're going to be able to execute it. And what it is just going to be opening up our doors to the home of our students' parents, and really just try to make a connection between home and school. Just opening up different activities that can be done at home, open up extra conversations, just to get those math skills going a little bit more. Also, another component is a parent resource library. So I'll be adding to that. PTFEF allowed me to create a parent resource library, which is just different math activities that parents can check out from me, and then they can play it at home. And we'll be expanding that and opening that up to grade 5 also. So yes, I'm super excited, so thank you.
We had 3 people who were not able to attend tonight. We had Andrea Flynn from Porch High School, who has a grant that she titled Using Dr. Seuss to Teach Advanced Grammar and French. Lindsay Jeffress from South Haven School has a grant that she titled STEM Days. And Dana Ratzian from Willow Creek Middle School has an archaeological dig type of grant called Can You Dig It? So they were not able to be here, and we'll get that to them. But we're very thankful and grateful for the support from the board and from the administration. And especially having heard these people describe their grant in person, I think it's going to be an exciting school year next year, and a lot of things to look forward to as we all collaborate and all put in our pieces to the puzzle and make the best that we can for Portage kids. Thanks.
Some great innovative ideas there, so that's fun stuff. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, which is our superintendent content consent agenda. On that, we have 7.01 personnel report, 7.02 claims report for May 2018, our donations from May 2018, facility use report, and we have 3 overnight field trips, one for the Portage High School ROTC Cadet Leadership Camp, Indiana University Bloomington from Girls State Track Meet, and for Indiana University Bloomington Boys State Track Meet. We have a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call roll, please.
Ms. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey, yes. Mrs. Bristol?
Yes.
Mr. Malone?
Yes. Next, we have our board consent agenda, which includes item 8.01 minutes of the April 23rd, 2018 regular board meeting, 8.02 minutes of the April 23rd, 2018 public work session, 8.03 minutes of the May 7th, 2018 Building Grounds Innovation Committee meeting, and 8.04 minutes of the May 7th, 2018 discussion meeting. Do you have a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the board consent agenda.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Nelson?
Yes.
Ms. Maxwell?
Yes.
Mrs. Lady West? Mrs. Prisco?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next we move on. Item number 12, old business, 12.01, approval of non-union wage increase. Do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the non-union wage increase.
The legislative.
Did I miss that? Oh, I did. I'm sorry.
May I back you up even before 9.0?
Yes.
If I may, we had sent an invitation for those who are retiring in the event that they would like to come tonight, and I do see some of those wonderful faces out in the audience, so I would just like them to come forward
Sure.
and be able to shake the board's hand. I don't believe Mrs. Barnum is here this evening, but 29 years as a teacher at Central Elementary. Mrs. England, South Haven Elementary, 33 years. Mrs. Hargarden, 45 years at Myers Elementary. Karen Waite, Kyle Elementary, 40 years. And Mrs. Zwick, 45 years, a teacher at Myers. Also, Portage High School, we're losing both business teachers. Miss Martin, 12 years of experience in Portage, and Mrs. Slamkowski, 31 years. So if you would come before the board, we really appreciate your service and
Thank you.
Oh, don't worry, I'll be around.
thank you. And if you want to start your retirement right now, you guys are free to go.
Oh, no, I'm a Portage resident. I'm gonna stay.
My grandson in the car who fell asleep because my daughter and he surprised me for my party baby.
Oh, how wonderful.
I'm gonna go, and thank you so much. It's been wonderful, very wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, I also noticed on our personnel report, just to publicly acknowledge Debbie Smith, longtime secretary of Portage High School, is retiring after 28 years.
Yes. My Girl Scout leader.
So with that being said, I had seen where we were going to be recognizing the teachers who retired, and I think that's a very good idea. I think that a board member brought up. However, I do think that there's more to the district with 1,500 employees who have given years of service and phenomenal plenitude of service that we need to recognize all then, if we're going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Okay, now, back in order. Move on to 9.01, our legislative committee.
Yes, and thank you. And this is a time of the year where the legislature has been busy at the state level. And of course, I've been keeping everybody abreast at the federal level. This is a little late, as I had stated. There was a special session. But some of the things that's going to be happening different in education in the state of Indiana. There is a new bill with what's considered fiscal indicators. There's going to be 20 fiscal indicators, and it's going to be a dashboard. And everybody's aware of the fact that our data that we have housed on our website, we do not house that. That's the Indiana Department of Education who maintains that. So this will be something that the Indiana Department of Education will also be maintaining and post on the dashboard. So it will be public to show fiscal responsibility. School funding. School funding, this year, or the new bill is going to require that the school corporation report information about virtual education programs, requires a pupil to be at least 5 years of age August 1st, to be included in the ADM for kindergarten. A lot of school districts were allowing them in, considering it pre-K and possibly even some preschool and getting funding for 4-year-olds. And I don't think that's something that we ever did, and I wasn't aware that that was happening, but it definitely was occurring. So pre-K or 4-year-old is no longer going to be available for ADM counts. So somebody had asked, can we charge tuition from parents if we wanted to have a pre-K or a 4-year-old? And no answer yet on that. August 1st, there's a provision which will produce an $18.5 million reduction in tuition support. For workforce funding and programs, we're going to be required as an annual workforce-related program review every year. That requires information on workforce-related programs. Mr. Milletta, I'm sure you're interested in that. Establishes the next level job employer training grant program is going to be available from the IDOE. Head preparedness and training for coaches. Head coaches and assistant coaches are going to have to complete a certified coaching education course that includes content for prevention or response to heat-related events or injuries. The financial management, I did ask the couple board members that were at this meeting if this was discussed with the budget committee, and they did say yes. So it permits, I won't go into great detail with it, it permits money in school corporations' operation fund at the end of the year to be transferred to the school corporation's rainy day fund. And also the ISBA is doing webinars now. This year is the first year that they're doing webinars for the school board members. And so there is going to be a webinar on 6/13, so maybe if one or both of the school board members who's a part of the budget committee could attend that webinar. And it's also going to be put out by the IASBO and the IPAS. Students in foster care and homeless students. The State Board of Education is going to be required to annually prepare and submit the following: a report on foster care youth education outcomes and a report on homeless youth education outcomes. So now outcomes are going to be part of the reporting. Bullying. Corporations are not required to report the number of incidents of bullying in the school corporation's annual school performance report. That information reported by a school corporation related to the number of incidents of bullying that occur may not be used in the calculation of the school's annual school improvement plan. The purpose and the public policy of this bill is because the ESSA components now are a new federal law with SEL, social and emotional learning, is going to be a component of it. So the bill actually attempts to incentivize accurate reporting by excluding the bullying incident numbers from the annual performance report. Because, you know, it kind of didn't make sense at the beginning, but then if you look at it that way, it does. Elementary school teacher content area and license, there's big changes there that's going to be occurring. So it provides that not later than July 1st, 2019, the State Board of Education shall adopt rules to establish elementary school teacher content area license that must, at a minimum, include the following two: elementary mathematics specialist license, 2, elementary mathematic teacher license, or an elementary mathematic and science teacher license. The good part about this is that it's going to require the Department of Education, the IDOE, to develop an incentive program to assist and reward teachers who pursue and earn an elementary school teacher content area license. So we will be able to reward those teachers for that content. However, no funding was included. You guys heard this enough. No funding was included in the bill for the IDOE developed incentive program. Hopefully, something will be addressed in the 2019 budget for that. Various educational manners, there's seclusion and restraint changes that you'll probably get some information from that I'm not going to go into here. And then there's also something that's considered the Cambridge International Course. Is that our IBP? Are you aware of that? Have you heard of that? Okay, so the Cambridge International Course may be used for the following 7 purposes. Supplemental payment to a teacher who teaches I'm just going to call it a CI course. 2, as one of the assessment that a student plans to take voluntarily during grades 10 through 12. 3, additional curriculum model available to high school students. 4, replacement for certain high school courses on a student's high school transcript. 5, a receipt of credits towards graduation by demonstrating proficiency in a course or subject area. And 6, to place a student who is a child of military family in the appropriate course when the student transfers to a new school. 7, purpose of determining eligibility for various higher education scholarships and award programs and amounts. A CI course may take the accompanying CI examination to receive a high school credit for the CI course. So I'm not sure if this is, I tried to Google this and I'm not sure if this is something new or if this is something that some districts are already doing and they're changing it. So successfully completed CI International course is credited toward fulfilling the requirements of the 440 diploma with academic honors and designation. A student expelled from a virtual charter for non-attendance cannot re-enroll in the same school during this same school year. And I know that doesn't pertain to us. However, it's important because some online virtual schools, and I know I've said this to the board, in the state of Indiana, and they've been looked at and negative reporting has been going on with them. And some of these online schools grew by 2/3 virtual school. And what they were doing, and students weren't, giving in any product, and then they were saying they weren't there for attendance, and then they would expel them for attendance, and then they would come back in and be part of another ADM. And it was just not the right way, and they were getting all kinds of money, and they were growing that way, and it was terrible. So, school discipline, the IDOE will provide a model evidence-based plan for improving student behavior and discipline. It's going to have 3 components to it. All school districts will have to comply with this. It's going to be done in a study committee, the model. The underlying purpose for the state legislature and the public policy for this law was 1, to reduce out-of-school suspension and disproportionately in discipline and expulsion, especially among students of color. 2, to limit referrals to law enforcement or arrest on school property. 2, cases in which referral to law enforcement or arrest is necessary to protect the health and safety of students or the school employees. And 3, includes policies to address instances of bullying and cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is pretty big this year on school property. This is going to be beginning in 2019-20 school year. The department, in collaboration with parent organization, teacher organization, educational support professional organizations, and state educational institutions shall, upon a school corporation's request, provide information and assistance to the school corporation regarding the implementation of the school corporation's evidence-based plan to ensure that teachers and administrators receive appropriate PD and other resources in preparation to carry out this new plan. Once again, it's gonna be in a study committee. The studying, what they're looking at right now, are studying the use of positive student discipline and restorative justice, and requires the IDOE to conduct a survey of school corporation, school discipline policies to determine the extent in which the positive discipline and restorative justice practices are being utilized. I did send the board and the superintendent the model program that it was being done, I believe it was in Fort Wayne with restorative justice, and how they actually decreased expulsions and suspensions to almost zero with restorative justice. And I get a feeling that the IDOE will be looking at that model as a pilot to get their evidence-based plan with other school districts in the state of Indiana who has incorporated restorative justice to the fullest to decrease school suspension and expulsions for students. Something else I think that everybody is aware of, at the federal program, once again with ESSA, there is a single diploma, and that is something now that the state has to follow suit with. So the state of Indiana did apply for a waiver to get 1 year waived into this, and the Department of Education said, no, you're not gonna get a waiver. So this is something that this school district has been aware of since before even the waiver, so it's been a year that we went to the ISBA to report out on this. And they are anticipating that the graduation rate in Indiana will decrease by 13%. So that can give us a perspective of what our district will be looking at also. So anything less than a core 40 will not be counted by the federal government. However, for this year, it will be counted for the Indiana Department of Education or Indiana grade here. The state board will establish one standard Indiana diploma for individuals who successfully complete high school graduation requirement. The current law states that there's 4 different diplomas currently. The diploma must include one of the following designations: a general diploma, a general designation, a core 40 general designation, core 40 with academic honors designation, or core 40 with technical honors designation. Requires an alternative diploma with students with significant cognitive disabilities, which is good. Requires in adapting core 40 curriculum models the state board to consider math course requirements other than Algebra 2. It also requires the board to establish math course requirements and science course requirements for core 40 models. After June 30th, 2021, there will be a statewide assessment that will be nationally recognized college entrance exam, and it looks like the state of Indiana is going to go to the ACT or the SAT model. We will no longer have end-of-course assessments. There's going to be a CQE, let's see, I said 1921, sorry, repeating myself a little bit here. They also stated that for school districts going, in the state of Indiana, are going to be going to the SAT or the ACT. The SAT, know that your students' average for the SAT is math 530 and English 1480. So in other words, they said, be ready and get ready now with that, because it's definitely going to hurt your state grade and your federal. It's going to hurt that. So you need to know where we're at with our students with that and where they're at as opposed to the national level. So it eliminates the requirement that a student must take a college and career readiness examination if the student is identified under the guidelines developed by the state board to likely be in need of remediation. So I would imagine that eliminates the requirement of the AccuPlacer remediation test. They did state that Algebra 2 and chemistry are going to be sticklers. Be careful with those. So you're going to need multiple pathways for students to master those 2. And to have those ready and get those, on the docket, the course docket. Use of sunscreen. This is a little interesting. I didn't realize that sunscreen is actually considered a medication. So students cannot carry sunscreen in their backpack and have to go down to the nurse's office and have it there for sunscreen to be applied. So now students may possess and use sunscreen, non-aerosol, while on school property or at a school-sponsored event or activity without being required to have a physician's note or to have a staff member apply it. Which is interesting. Human sexuality, I think everybody's been watching that one. It did pass, somewhat of it did. It requires each school district to make available for inspection a parent of a student instructional material used in connection with instruction on human sexuality. Provides that before a school may provide a student with instruction on human sexuality, the school must provide the parent of the student or the student, if the student is an adult or emancipated, with a written request for consent of instruction. So I'm sure that's a form that the IDO will be sending out. Computer science, this is good. Everybody knows that across the nation that computer science is something that has, a lot of districts has been putting in K-12 at each level. So now the state says at the next level computer science, there's going to be a grant program for it, and it's going to be called the Next Level Computer Science Fund. There's going to be grants that's going to be awarded after June 30th, 2019, and to implement teacher professional development for training and teaching computer science. This grant then will require, or the funds, that beginning July 1st, 2021, each public school will include a computer science in the school's science curriculum from grades K through 12. The high school computer science courses that must be available for students once each school year are elective. Dyslexia, there's now a school multidisciplinary team that needs to be developed that must include information about dyslexia in a student's education evaluation if the multidisciplinary team determines that the student is eligible to receive special education and related services or has characteristics of dyslexia. So that's going to be a new reporting mechanism. Employability skills curriculum. This provides that the Department of Workforce Development will establish standards that provide students with career and college planning resources under the Indiana Career Explorer Program and standards. So the current law provides that the Department of Workforce Development will establish curriculum under the Indiana Career Explorer Program and curriculum. So no later than July 1st, 2019, each school shall include an interdisciplinary employability skills standard. So I'm very involved with the manufacturing and the health 360. Various educational matters, there's numerous, just one that I'd like to bring up is the amends date for the submission of reports regarding the number of full-time equivalent students enrolled in alternative education programs. So that's going to change, and this is a new one that is going to affect our contract bargaining, Mr. Elwood. So teacher permits, examinations, and salaries. It's going to require the IDOE to post the pass rate of the content area examination for each post-secondary educational institution. Establish eligibility requirements for career specialist permit. Provides that the school years beginning after June 30th, 2018, and this bill number, if you wanted to look it up, is going to be SEA 387 PL 170. After June 30th, 2018, a school corporation may provide a supplemental payment to a teacher in excess of the salary specified in the school corporation's compensation plan if the teacher does one of two things: is a special education professional or 2 teaches in the area of science, technology, engineering, or math, or what we call STEM. Also provides that the elementary teacher may be eligible for the supplemental payment if the teacher earns a master's degree in math, which is new, reading or literacy. So the current law does provide for reading and literacy, so they added math. There's also a supplemental payment. It is not subject to collective bargaining, but it must be discussed. And that is that the salary increase amount attributed for the academic needs of students may be differentiated among individuals' teachers as part of the teacher salary scale. It also may provide we also may provide differentiated increases or increments for teacher salaries in the excess of the percentage established for certain factors used to determine teacher salary increases or increments in order to reduce the gap between minimum teacher salary and the average of the school corporation's minimum and maximum teacher salaries. I know that's convoluted, but it's changing things a lot. It also provides that before November 1st, 2018, the department shall issue a request for proposal for an educator licensing examination. So a couple of the bills that came up on to the special session that did not get passed, but it might be indicative of what might come up next year because of the fact that, you know, there was many educational bills that didn't get passed. So a couple that they did bring up that I thought would be important to the board is that the TIF district, the RDC, the Redevelopment Commission, must meet with the school district yearly. And then also the 529 plans, which maybe some grandparents have, like myself, could possibly be used for enrollment in non-public schools, so for charters for K through 12. And you can earn credit if it would be used for that. That is the legislative update, and once again, that is more of a yearly update compared to what we do once a month. But that and many, many more bills, I'm sure that we'll be seeing a lot of new policies that'll be coming through, and explanations. But we also do have a video on the federal level. Where is it going to play? Oh, but
It's
you
gonna
can't
play
see
here
it
too?
this way.
Secretary DeVos testified in the House, but did one of her answers violate the Constitution? We'll take a deeper look. We'll also review a $100 billion plan from congressional Democrats that could bring relief to striking teachers. Jason, tell us about the hearing in the House.
Hello and welcome to Federal Flash.
That's it.
That's okay. Technology.
Hello, and welcome to Federal Flash. I'm Monica Almond, and I'm joined by Jason Amos. It was a busy week on Capitol Hill. Secretary DeVos testified in the House, but did one of her answers violate the Constitution? We'll take a deeper look. We'll also review a $100 billion plan from congressional Democrats that could bring relief to striking teachers. Jason, tell us about the hearing in the House.
Thanks, Monica. Chairwoman Virginia Fox and Ranking Member Bobby Scott both delivered opening statements that offered condolences to the latest victims of gun violence at Santa Fe High School. But that was the only thing Republicans and Democrats had in common at the 4-hour hearing, which marked the first time Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos testified before the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. The hearing covered several topics: the Commission on School Safety chaired by DeVos, student loans, career and technical education, and more. We're going to focus on just 2 issues, but you can watch the hearing in its entirety at the link below. Chairwoman Fox reminded the committee of her belief that the federal government has little to no role to play in education, noting that, quote, there are 4,543 words in the Constitution. Not one of them is the word education or a synonym, end quote. Ranking Member Scott holds a very different view and questions Secretary DeVos on her approval of state plans to implement the Every Student Succeeds Act, or ESSA. Scott was especially concerned about state plans that do not incorporate the performance of historically underserved students as required under the law. Here's a brief clip of their exchange.
How do you address an achievement gap if subgroup performance isn't addressed?
It is addressed as required by the law.
How is that?
Whatever the law states, it requires.
What does the law state?
The plans that I have approved follow the law as this body passed.
And what is the requirement?
If the question is what the law does not include that you might have wished it did, I will not add to the law. I will follow the law.
Mr. Scott took to Twitter to clarify that he doesn't just wish the law required the performance to count, the law actually requires it.
Thanks, Jason. Another tense moment in the hearing rose when Congressman Adriano Espaillat asked the Secretary if educators were to report students to immigration authorities if the students might be undocumented. Secretary DeVos said, quote, these issues are state and local issues to be addressed and dealt with. She also said, quote, we have laws and we also are compassionate, end quote. To be clear, yes, we have laws, and yes, we are compassionate. We also have a Supreme Court that decided over 3 decades ago that students have a constitutional right under the Equal Protection Clause to attend public school, regardless of their immigration status. It really isn't accurate to say this is a local issue. It's a constitutional issue, one that was clarified by the Supreme Court in 1982 in Plyer v. Doe. You want to be very clear about this. Students have the right to attend public school regardless of their immigration status. If you would like more information on this, please watch our webinar from a few months ago, available at the link below.
Thanks, Vaughn. On the same day Secretary DeVos testified on the Hill, congressional Democrats issued a call for an additional $100 billion investment in education. $50 billion would be dedicated toward increasing teacher compensation, and $50 billion would go towards school infrastructure. The proposal is part of an agenda Democrats are advancing called a better deal. Additional information is available at the link below.
That's all for now. For an alert when the next episode of Federal Flash is available, email us at alliance@allforen.org. Thanks for watching.
So this school board has been following the Federal Flash very carefully because as everybody's aware of the fact that with the new president and having the House and the Senate controlled by the same thing as the president, and with his selection of the educated Betsy DeVos, they are definitely trying to take away they have taken away a lot of public dollars and diverted it into charters across the nation, and also, attack on public education. So this is something that if you're interested in, these are very good to look at the federal level so you can see what's going on. And typically, there's not much going on, but there has been recently, and this is something that the board, we look at and keep up abreast of. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Right there. Thank you for covering that. Okay, now we'll move on to old business. Item 12.01, approval of non-union wage increase.
Make the motion to approve the non-union wage increase.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to have discussion, please. This board has approved both union and non-union wage increases many, many years. However, at the same time, I do feel that as an elected school board member, that there has got to be checks and balances, and that we need to ask questions, and questions need to be answered. And we are not elected to be a rubber stamp by any means. When we do go over wage increases with our bargaining units via union, we do meet in an executive session, because typically wages are a little bit more complex to understand, and there are meetings that are held without the school board with our attorney as our designee in contract bargaining. After that contract bargaining is done, that our designee does come to the school board in executive session and explain in detail what is going to happen, and then also before we even meet with union employees, we have asked if the school board could be part of an executive session to discuss the strategies, what we're looking at, and we have done that, and I do appreciate that. With that being said, typically the non-union wages are pretty easy to understand across the board, and no questions asked. Unfortunately, that was not the case with this one. So typically, when we do have issues that there are questions, this school board has 2 meetings a month. They do have a discussion meeting, and then they have a voting meeting. The purpose of the underlying reason for the discussion meeting is to have discussion, to be transparent to our taxpayers, so the taxpayers are aware of the fact what we are doing with their dollars. This we did not have in a discussion meeting. We are taking a vote for it. So with that being said, I am requesting that all documents pertaining to this issue, dating back to the last 3 months if I'm not mistaken, so that would be documents, anything from the superintendent, any questions that any board member has had, any questions that any attorney has answered, including our attorney, our school board attorney, and also the Indiana School Board Association attorney, and any other data or information would be put to attach to this board docs for transparency, so that the public, which we represent, can see what we're doing with their taxpayers' dollars and what we have been discussing. I want to say, don't want to say behind the scenes, because there has been, but not in public, since we're not having a discussion meeting. And then because this was such a large, many documents and a large volume of information, that I know that the superintendent understood, and she was able to connect the dots. However, when it was put out on paper, those dots, it was hard to gather. And I know I did meet with her, and I did explain that to her, in that some of the numbers just didn't correspond, they didn't add up, and sometimes, just to make it, and I appreciate you going back and looking at those numbers and making those numbers more easier and the documents easier to understand. But that's all I'm asking, is that please, if we can make, because they are public records, everything, including if we could put that eventually. And then there was some questions that I had, I believe 3. I have not had a chance to look at my email. I'm assuming, I believe, Mr. Elwood, you have answered some. You had stated in the email I haven't read.
I think I've answered everything. If not, let me know.
And then I also want to know what exactly this was going to cost the taxpayers, the district, for the raises, the dollar amount, and also I believe I asked for the last 5 years specifically, if not for all of, I don't need the assistant principals and the principals because I understand what they're doing, but for central office and our directors for the last 5 years, what they've received, so that we would have those numbers as opposed to a range of 3 to 5%. I don't know who got 3, who got 5, who got less, that's hard to determine. And, you know, when you look at that, and then if any of those directors or central office positions change titles, if that could also be in that document, and if that could be included at our next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good request. My only comment is let's make sure we preserve attorney-client privilege communication so we can have a general public content, and then any letters I've done to the board should be under the executive content in the same area. It's just, I think, the one letter I did a couple emails.
Compare the apples to apples or apples to oranges, where we could not,
Yeah.
we could not compare
Right.
another person's job description if they didn't have fulfill those duties.
Right, that was the one.
We could not correlate that pay to that individual and create those duties for that individual if they weren't fulfilling them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any other discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Wait a minute. Are we gonna, we've seconded to vote on this?
Yes.
I thought the percentage of raises was included in the board in the grants.
I'm talking about day one. This has been a 3-month process.
I understand.
All documents need to be public, should be public. These raises were not original. There was a 14.2% at one time. So I just think that the taxpayers need to see what this school board has seen and what we were looking at.
Okay, so from where it went to where it is?
All documents
I'm
related
looking
to
at the
this
packet
subject.
right now. It does say 2.5%, 2%.
No, they're changed.
They're changed.
They changed. They changed. They changed.
Yeah, they've been updated a couple of times.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah, they
Thank
have.
you. Yeah, thank you.
And I'd like to.
I see dollars amount and percentages, so
Okay, so
they're not
Mrs.
what, they're not
Bailey, you
what
know
they-
that they're not what
No, they're not what they
originally
originally
was
were, no,
proposed.
absolutely not.
And
But
that's
we're
why there
voting
was
on what the
questions.
packet says now.
I understand that, but once again, typically, we can meet in executive session
I agree.
with union,
Right.
okay? We cannot meet in an executive session, there's a reason for it,
I got
and
it.
it should be public. And it was not public, we did not have a discussion meeting on it where we could ask questions publicly in a meeting to the superintendent or anybody else who proposed that information to us, and we should have been able to. Since we did not have that opportunity, and we typically do,
You want
then
those
it needs to be
documents
made
released.
public.
Yeah.
And they're FOIA requestable anyway, they're public
Absolutely.
records.
Everything is.
They're all FOIA. For transparency, they need to be out there so that people can say, okay, certain board members, maybe they question, why did they question? This is why.
No, my confusion was, I thought you had said that you didn't have the percentages of the dollar amounts. And that's what I was looking at. That's all my
No,
question was.
I said that some of them was convoluted and we had that discussion and I appreciate her explaining things and making it simplistic, a little bit more simplistic.
I
But
misunderstood
anytime
what
we
your
have,
request was.
yes.
Well, and I know that you have done everything that you can in the last couple of months and have asked us if we have any questions to please let you know, and we'll be more than happy to answer that. And I know that that's been going on for quite some time, so I appreciate that.
Did you have something else, Rhonda?
No,
Call the roll again.
Are we rolling?
Yes.
Mrs. Nelson? Yes. Ms. Vasquez?
Yes.
Mrs. Bailey, yes. Mrs. Briscoe?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes. Okay, next we have our old business board plan, items on here, superintendent evaluation, which I believe we have a date for, that now, our school board retreat. Do we have any information on that retreat with
I sent the information to, I would imagine it's at the end of the school year. Hopefully this season.
the, no, I'm talking about, because we were gonna have.
I sent it to her
Oh, you
because
did?
her dates are more,
Yeah,
Okay.
that way
Got it.
looking for a date
she
in
could,
July.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine, so
Yeah.
just.
I figured
you
she
take
could
that.
get a date, a couple of dates with them and send it up, because she's busier than all of us.
That's
And,
better.
yeah,
I think it would be kind of similar with the video conferencing.
yeah.
That will work fine. So just, yeah, when you get that, then get that out. Then we'll move on to old business board policy of turf maintenance fundraiser policy.
I think this is just still
That's-
remaining
Yes, it's
on.
a remaining item, just to keep it on here, the same with review of contract policies.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, we'll move on down to our superintendent reports and updates.
A few exciting things I'd like to share with the board. First of all, Dr. Stevens and I, we've been fortunate to collaborate here as of late with the Food Bank of Northwest Indiana. And they reached out to us, and we are just really jumping on this opportunity. June 21st will be our very first feeding to families through what is called the mobile market. Our intentions are going to be to provide this to our Portage families once a week. They will allow the opportunity for up to 300 families to come and shop and choose whatever it is they so desire. The only requirement is that they bring boxes or bags. There is no specific requirement over free and reduced lunch. There's no requirement over you have to have this many green beans. It's just simply take what you need. It opens at 4 o'clock and concludes at 6, and it's just there until they run out. At the conclusion of 6 o'clock, the agreement that we have decided upon is that the intent is not to send the food back to the food bank. It is to then have some sort of internal food market for our families to be able to access. We're going to be publicizing this heavily, and each time we need anywhere from 10 to 15 volunteers to include any students, community members, and I knew that you would want to be involved as well. We are kicking it off, as I said, June 21st, and this will be our first one. Right now, we're doing it once a month, but the intention is to, again, as we get our pool of volunteers going, and of course, our OTC and all of those service organizations that we have throughout the district, student councils, honor societies, I'm sure even our robotics teams would be willing to do this, then we intend to move it to one time a week. Currently, we're gonna move it between Willow Creek and the high school. Willow Creek will be first, and Dr. Stevens and I chose it to be the third Thursday of each month, so that in the event family resources that they receive at the start of the month are starting to run low, then they can come to the mobile market. It's really about eliminating that stigma of the pantry concept, and they intend to be setting up outdoors and really making it feel like a market feel on the dates that are weather permitting. So again, that first one will be June 21st, and we'll be setting up those volunteer options. And I know that this is something that the partnership committee will want to get involved in as well, and just a great chance to further serve our families. The only requirement is they have to prove they're a Portage resident. Also, we're working in collaboration with the Porter County Education Service Center, which provides our special education, as you know, regarding the program review and audits that we're doing throughout the county. Also, we're in the process of transition planning for those students who are in developmental kindergarten who will be coming with us this fall. And I'm really excited to share with you that we are in the very preliminary conversations, but something that I have desired for a long time, and Dr. Stevens and the principals are in full agreement about getting our preschoolers, our Portage students who are 3 and 4 that go to South for preschool, to have preschool care. So it looks as though that's going to take place for this fall. We have a lot of families already excited because, as you can imagine, sending your 3-year-old on a bus ride to Valpo every day, or 2 or 3 times a week, depending, for services is overwhelming for families. But then we also noticed that once they go there, they're so connected to those employees and the service providers that then when they come back to us, there's trepidation yet again. So we're trying to eliminate some of that. Mr. DiPasquale provided me with confirmation last week, that we are once again a common sense media school district. all 11 schools certified again in that digital citizenship. So we will be adding that sticker to the bottom of our banners. Also, we're hosting the Indiana Association of School Business Professionals Region 1 meeting, June 7th, just for our region area. And another exciting opportunity, the Apple Deployment Regional Meeting is going to be housed at Portage High School July 10th for the area. That was something that they had spoke with Mr. Sexuality about and really wanted to host that here. Briefly, just a couple other items. iRead 3 is next week, the retake. As you know, we moved that to the start of summer instead of the end of summer. And the remediation, early school, after school has been tremendous, and of course during the day. Summer school programs are going to be beginning next week. And we also have our summer feeding set up, and we'll be advertising that heavily. And we're just continuing, moving forward. One thing I do want to mention regarding cyberbullying, as Mrs. O'Crisco had mentioned, that was something that was is heavily being concentrated on. We're going to be bringing for the board something called Securely. And this is an opportunity for us to monitor devices outside of the district so that a student on a one-to-one device at home will ping from their Wi-Fi and connect to our network. The great thing about this is then we can control the content they're accessing with the parameters we set. We can also monitor for any self-harm phrases, any bullying phrases, and different things so that there will be notifications sent back to the district so that we can best monitor those devices at home as well, knowing that cyberbullying is such a concern. So a lot of great things going on. I wrote 19 things, but I'll stop there. A lot going on at the end of the year.
That's great.
Sounds like good things.
Dr. Ellis, when they approve residency for the local market, is it Portage or is it Portage Township?
It is Portage Township. Yes.
And how will the families be notified?
What we are doing is we are sending out, Dr. Stevens and I met with the homeschool advisors, and we determined that we are going to open this up as a first come, first serve, but of course also knowing that there's connections with families who we know need resources, so we're specifically contacting them and or making a visit so that they're aware. And then as people come by, let's say someone sees these tents outside of Willow Creek, and they stop by and say, hey, what is this? And they say, free food, come get it. Show us you're a Portage Township resident. And so it can be a resource as needed. I will tell you we're the second district that's going to be doing it. They are first doing it in Lake Station. The first time they've had 110 families. So again, we can go upwards of 300. This time we're going to try to target a minimum of 200. They're going to help us with volunteers this time, and we've got people excited and ready to help out. And again, my goal is, because this is year-round, we can provide up to 300 families their groceries for the week, up to one time a week. And I mean, I don't know how else to really capitalize on how important that is, as you know. And this actually stemmed from the backpack program, because our students are going home. And I'll tell you, as a principal, and I could tell you from the teachers in this room as well, when you send your students down to get those backpacks at the end of each week, they come back to class and their chests are a little puffy, because they have taken on the responsibility of helping to feed their family. Although what's in that bag is only enough for them to eat over the weekend. So what we're finding is they are stretching that among their whole family. And when the kids are providing feedback to the school, and we're sharing it with the food bank, they're ecstatic that they're feeding their family. So knowing that that was a struggle that we're having across, all communities, they had reached out in this way to build this new initiative. And I mean, they barely sent the email and we were making an appointment to meet with them. So it's very fortunate for our community.
So who oversees this? Is it the church?
No, what is going to occur is they have a specific individual who oversees this initiative with the food bank, and then that individual will work directly in collaboration with Dr. Stevens, and it will come on site to Willow Creek. What they will do is they will load the trucks. They will all have all the food will be in pallets. They will come, they will bring tables. They will put everything out as if it were an aisle of a grocery store, so they're not having to pick off pallets. But the whole idea is that community market feel coming to our families so that they don't have to go as far for those resources. They're just right here in Portage. We also talked about making sure that our goal was to make sure there was enough parking and also an access place that's easily accessible. So for instance, as we do this, let's say every other week, once a week, would be Willow Creek, the high school, Willow Creek, the high school, so that they always know the locations. But in the event that families need to walk from South Haven every other week, there's that opportunity to walk. And just the same on the north side of town. We kind of went with the west and east type border. You know, as we look at this, we very well may end up saying to Mrs. Corbett, can we provide bus service for families who don't have access to get there? If they sign up by a certain date and time, you know, I think the possibilities with this are pretty endless.
So it's not the community garden?
It is not.
Okay, so that's different.
Yes, yes.
So they're getting this product brought in?
They are.
From the food bank?
They are getting it from the food bank, and she did share that, forgive me, I failed to recall her name at the current moment, but she did share with us that on occasion they will have fresh fruits and vegetables, you know, whenever available. And of course, that's gonna be a priority to get that fresh produce out, but that also, you know, just as available. And again, I was ecstatic to hear that they don't want to take that back to the food bank. They want to leave it in the community for our families. So we'll find a way that they can access that. They're working very closely currently also with the South Haven Boys and Girls Club, where they are setting up similar scenarios. But again, something else to just capitalize further.
And who do we contact if we want to volunteer or someone else that we know would like to volunteer?
At this point in time, if you would like to volunteer or have someone who would, go ahead and send me an email. And I will get the dates out to the board. As I said, right now it's the first Thursday of every month. I'm sorry, the third Thursday of every month. So I'll get that out to you so that you can have that on your calendar. So it's always going to be in the evening is what we decided. The distribution will be from 4 to 6 each time. Setup, so volunteers at 3, and then for setup for an hour. And then at the conclusion of the shopping with the families, from 6 to 7, we help. And we have some that said, you know, if I can come an hour, absolutely. You know, I understand families and community members can't necessarily commit to the 4 hours, but if it's just coming to help set up or, you know, helping during the distribution, it's pretty meaningful.
And I think students could also, even the younger kids.
We even asked that, we asked that, you know, that we had some individuals who asked, you know, I've got a first grader or a second grader, bring them, they can help. She did state that in Lake Station, they had some students who were there to volunteer, but shopped for their family before volunteering, and it's just eliminating all the stigma surrounding it and giving back, yet also being able to have the resources your family needs.
So the high school kids, can that go towards some of their
Yep,
community
they
service?
absolutely can have community hours with that.
It's great to do it.
It is, it's a great idea, and when you were talking about this, that's why I was asking who ran it. I was at a seminar once where the school district employed their special needs students in whatever capacity they could throughout the summer, or, you know, because typically those kids it's tough to get a job. So that's why I was wondering if this could be something that maybe we could, you know, employ our students. Because that was something that they did, where they helped put things in, or help bag, or help organize, help clean up. And then it's a way of giving back to the community, but it's also a way of helping some of our students who need it.
Mr. Ohms, Dr. Stevens and I, Mr. Ohms, our new food service director, we've been speaking about that very specific thing, not only for this project, but also regularly in our kitchens and cafeterias, to make sure that we can have our students highly engaged in those opportunities. We're fortunate he ran a similar program for students at a local high school with Chicago Public Schools as a manager of Eduardo's Pizza. So he had several ideas. And from my understanding, when Mrs. Preboy came on board with us as our special education director, we learned that previously our Portage students did have jobs within the school and within the cafeterias.
Pages that
and-
we would
Yes.
approve, but they would be doing lawns and everything. Just literally, almost hundreds of kids would be employed in almost every department over the summer to make money, and I don't know what happened to that. I don't know who's doing it, because we're not contracting out. I would hope we're not doing overtime.
Right.
But we need to look at that again, painting and mowing lawn and just, doing
I will-
stuff with technology and downloading stuff and shredding things.
I'll tell you, we have 14 interns for IT this summer. They interviewed and decided to keep all 14 for 5 weeks. So that's, I saw some messages on Facebook from some very grateful parents that their children will be working this summer, starting at 6:30 a.m.
So I did see on the agenda, Dr. Allen, as you, the All Music Award. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh, yes. I did want to mention as well that I had shared with you that Willow Creek had received that. We've also received the letter that Portage High School has received that, and I'm highly anticipating that we're going to also get a letter for Fabley. As you know, our music programs are truly second to none. As you know, I've had to add another music teacher because of our programs continuing to expand. It will be split between the middle school and the high school. So again, just accolades to another great program. And I was excited today to hear about the Robotics Award for Community Outreach. Didn't even know. So I have that here for Mrs. DeBerlawi to do a press release. And we're working through some ideas where people regularly will come and boast on behalf of our kids so that we can make sure to get that out.
And then the last thing is, if you could share with us, I know Sunday's an exciting day, some details on that.
For Sunday, we will be meeting in the conference room, the same location we have in past years, right there in the main office. I would say be around 5:15-ish to be able to get a parking spot. It does say 5, but I'll be there about 5:15. And I'm thrilled to share, and I have to tell you, I once this occurs, I know the board would be very much supporting the idea of sending a thank you note to Duneland School Corporation, who is allowing us to utilize their stage. They're going to take it down at their place, come set it up here, and we'll transport it, and then also take it down and have it back at their place. So we did provide them with our liability insurance so that they're aware of that, but we really wanted a stage, and we thought, why not ask a neighbor? And they were more than willing. And it has a ramp up both sides so that it's ADA accessible. And it's going to be a great opportunity, we feel, so that everyone can really see the special moment for every child. So it's exciting.
Great, thank you. Okay, does anybody else have anything else that's not on the agenda?
I had asked Mr. Elwood about the truancy court. I know that the city council passed it, we passed it, and where is it at with the county? And if you could.
Yeah, I'll get you that answer. My partner with the county attorney is out of town until tomorrow morning. I did ask Chris, who also worked on drafting the city ordinance, our policy, and then I drafted the city ordinance, and he drafted the county one, so I just have to check with Scott. It's in process.
And then if you could let us know also when they're gonna vote on it, or if they're gonna review it. I don't think they have to vote on it per se, but we would like to, maybe some school board members would like to be present.
Yes.
And then the MOU for the marketing individual, we need to.
I need to get that from you.
Attorney Stidham has it.
Oh.
Yeah, he's got it.
Attorney Stidham has it.
Yes, he does. We reviewed it together.
Okay.
But that's something else that multiple bodies have got to approve.
Yes.
And some only have one meeting a month, and then just when you get it, and before you know it, school's gonna start, so.
I'll make sure to have it next week.
was on my list for you.
It's gonna be an exciting program.
It is, it's gonna be great. And Mrs. Porter Phillips and a team of our social emotional learning team for the district, they have looked at the toolkits that were provided. Mrs. O'Crisco found several resources for us from Ohio. We have redrafted many of those in the format that fit our needs and also correlate with our handbook and board policy. So I did send that out. It was a very, very large file, so you may not have seen it in the most recent months. But I will bring that also to the board table so that we can make sure that you have that. But the great part is it's also, again, that whole piece that we were missing for the truancy court was preventative measures and how to document those preventative measures as well as the interventions that are research-based, so that we're using this more like a response to intervention as if it were an academic or behavioral issue, so that we are making sure we're wrapping services around students, not just, going through a process.
And we have a lot of volunteers that you guys got ready. The senior,
Yes.
if you want to talk about
Yes,
that.
the
phone
seniors
banks,
are
it's
going to
exciting.
be setting up a phone bank. And we're gonna have them first be engaged on the positive front of an attendance campaign. And then, once they get the taste of that, those who are also willing to call and say, hey, where are you? We haven't seen you for 3 days, to see those who would like to do that as well. So the first blush will be just positive attendance campaign. This is what we're doing. This is why it's important to be in school. Here's some facts about students who attend school more regularly, and what's the likelihood of graduation and salary later on in life and those things. So Mr. Clancy has been phenomenal about allowing us that opportunity, and they really seem to think that they're going to get a kick out of it. So
Can you just hear these grandparent names?
Oh, I can't wait.
People call you. When I was your age.
I can't wait.
You can hear it.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
So we'll work with IT to make sure in some way, shape, or form how we can have phone numbers that are PTS driven, so that then the Bonner Senior Center isn't taking our call-offs for attendance, So we gotta work through some of those minor details, but we'll get there.
And some of them will probably even volunteer to do visits, home
Mhm.
visits.
And we
That's
even,
where the ambassadors are gonna come in.
yes, and also, we also thought about opening that up in that new volunteer training, so that they can be present in cafeterias if they would like to just visit with kids and have some of those talking points of how to encourage students.
Very good.
Good stuff with the partnership.
Oh, our partnership's going good.
Anybody else have anything?
Just like to say to the teachers and building administrator, central administrators, another school year has ended. And I know that it could be quite challenging, and our superintendent has led you in a very successful way. As I look back on when we were all students and the last day of school, it was really, really hard. And I know it was this past week, but as I see them in the neighborhood, they're all excited. And I don't know who's more excited, the students or the teachers, but I know it's really, really challenging, and I wish that you have a wonderful summer break and that you get energized again, because before you know it, it's time to come back.
All
So
of our
thank you
staff.
for- Yeah.
To all of our staff. Same wishes.
Yeah, great school year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if nobody else has anything, I don't see any public comment forms. We do have listed on the agenda some upcoming meetings.
What is the June 6th exact? I don't need to.
That
get
is
right
our for the superintendent evaluation.
But you can come if you want to.
No, that's okay. I enjoy spending time with you folks.
I just want to say for the record, he looked at me across.
So with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you for being here.